Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Three Powerful Secrets. Live happy after loss to find freedom and fulfillment and purpose without guilt, without overwhelm, without loneliness. This is the only process I know that is proven through research to show you how to be happy after a loss and in a short amount of time. And I'm going to prove that to you. Okay. So welcome. Glad you're here. This is just a wonderful time to be alive. You may have been around death lately, and I don't know about you, but it can make you sad, and I understand that. And I'm going to talk about all the losses I've gone through, which is a lot. One of the reasons why this particular process works is because it's written by people who have gone through grief. And then we've done the research to show that it actually works. So today we're going to uncover these three powerful secrets. I'm Chad Earhart, and I have been thinking about this masterclass for some time. Before we begin, feel free to say hello. I'm glad that you're on the call. Maybe tell me where you're from. I'm from Kansas City today, and I'm literally 5 minutes from Union Station. If you watch the Chiefs, if you're into football and you're from America, the United States of America, that is, you might understand. So, anyway, I know you're probably sad, like I said, but I want you to be hopeful. I want you to know that there's hope to be able to find freedom. And we're going to jump right in and we're going to learn some things today. And one of the things we're going to learn is how to live after loss in 2 months. I said 2 months rather than years, and in only 2 hours a week, and even less than that, honestly. Okay, but it's easy to remember. 2 months rather than 2 years, and in only 2 hours a week. All right. So my mom, she died fairly unexpectedly back in October, and my mom was always full of life. She was an encourager. She was my biggest fan. She was my prayer warrior. There wasn't a time that I probably hadn't called in the later years of her life where she would always just hear what was on my heart, and then she'd immediately say, "Hey, can we pray about that?" And a couple of months after she died, something shocked me. And it's that I realized that I had gone through my grief in record amount of time, and I felt completion. I felt, as some people would say, closure, right? And I started dreaming again. And one of the things I wanted to do is to be able to honor my mom. And so I put this course together specifically to honor my mom. I've been teaching on grief for some time, but this particular talk is all about helping just to honor my mom. And I haven't always grieved that fast. Back when I was 30, I had a very devastating thing happen to me, and I'm going to talk about that. And I spiraled down the rabbit hole of sadness and I got angry at a lot of people around me and couldn't figure out why they were just moving on. And this life was so, precious, and why people weren't, no noticing the things that I was going through, and some of the things that they were said hurt me. And they just, sometimes people just say stupid things around grief, right? They don't know how to handle grief. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to figure out how to do that. And that's kind of my promise for you today. Okay. So, but I want you to pay attention. So on this call right now, I don't know where you are, where you're from, whatever you're doing right now, I want you to stop right now. And I want you to just kind of treat this next hour or so like you've invested $25,000 and you have me as your personal one-on-one coach. And so take the phone, throw it across the room, put the Depends on, throw the kids in the closet. I mean, don't, but turn off all the social media, and let's just get focused. Okay. So get ready. Hold yourself. Hold on, because we're going to get started. You're probably going through some things. Okay. And I want to be honest about that up front, so that you know that I can connect with you, because I have gone through, like I said, a lot of grief, and it may not seem like it right now because I'm like, oh, but I'm telling you, when I was going, and I'll go there in a minute, but when I went through the grief with my mom, I grieved deeply. Let me tell you, I cried deeply. And when you go through grief, it's easy to get, though, to hold it in and maybe not grieve and go, I'm fine, everything's fine, right? And I'm not saying you have to cry to grieve. That's not what I'm saying at all. But you can get overwhelmed by this emotional pain and this inability to move forward. And it's like I'm always got thoughts going in my head about this. I thought about my mom today and kind of brought a tear to my eye as I just kind of remembered her and some of the things that she's done for me. I was just so grateful, even for the time that I had, even there at the very end. And sometimes there's difficulty finding focus and motivation, right? It's just like, oh my goodness, it's just like you can't, it's like you can't stay focused. And then someone like me, I have ADHD, so it's even harder to be able to stay focused and motivated. And then sometimes you have these ruminating thoughts of just being trapped in the thinking about that other person or the loss that you went through and just how sad you are and how you wish things could have been different. And so we're going to talk about Grief Recovery Roadmap, and it's for people who are high achievers and maybe a leader, and you're carrying loss right now. It's also for faith-driven visionaries. I have a faith background. I'm not saying you have to have a faith background at all, but I can connect with you if you do have a faith. Like a belief in God, and specifically a Christian faith. Though, I've got friends all on the gamut on that. And maybe you're a frustrated dreamer. I love helping dreamers, but you just can't figure out how to get past whatever you can't get past. And one of those things that cause us to get held back is our grief. And then there are those who feel stuck and alone in your loss. And then there are those action takers, and they're ready. They're ready for healing and real healing, but just don't know quite how to do that. And so what I want to do is I want to give you, for those of you who stay to the end, I wrote this, the Grief Mythbusters cheat sheet. On the top, grief myths, and how to think through those. And I think you're going to find that extremely helpful. You're going to find it really amazing on how simple I create the understanding behind it. And then I have a friend, and he's always telling me, he said, Chad, please share more of your book on focus. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so I'll just go ahead and give you my first chapter on focus. So at least you can kind of get an idea of what it is. And if it interests you, you could go on Amazon or whatever. But if you don't, that's fine. But I find that was a book that I wrote during COVID, and how to follow one course and focus is follow one course until successful, right? So how to do that, how to stay focused when all life is like you have people like destroying, it feels like your world is coming down around you. So how do you do that? How do you deal with the fear? How do you deal with um, like how do you create an environment, that can be positive and things like that. All right, so my name is Chad Earhart. My name is Earhart or Earhart because people say I listen with my heart. But not only that, I am related to Amelia Earhart from what I understand, and so I do have an adventurous spirit myself. I hope I'm like her in that way. And I was a director of spiritual care at actually at AT Still University, which is where osteopathic medicine started, where you've got DOs and MDs, but DOs started there in a little town called Kirksville, Missouri, and I used to be director of spiritual care and an adjunct professor there. So I've helped thousands of people through their grief. And then, I do have a Bachelor of Theology, interesting, with a master's in business. So I do help a lot of leaders. I help a lot of entrepreneurs through their grief. And I could talk more and more about me, but who cares about me? Just want you to know that I have been there. I can do it, right? I've been trained in so many different ways. I've had personal experience, and I don't want to give you anything that I can't actually help you with. And I've always lived that way. It's hard for me to be able to teach anything that I can't actually do myself. So I want you to imagine then if this grief recovery roadmap, this system, with grief coaching, okay, which is what I do. I own the Chad Earhart Coaching Company. So if you have the right support and you find that it's the key to living fully after your loss and dreaming again and even beginning to see what could be, and if you see it as the best option for doing just that, and if there's no other way that you can imagine it, will you promise me to at least take a step forward today? Okay. So are you getting excited that there might be actually hope for what you're going through right now? I hope so. I just had someone Facebook and say, "I need this. I need this." And I'm just like, "Oh my goodness, this is exactly who I'm for." I almost stopped, told myself, maybe I'm not ready for this right now." Because my mom just recently passing, and then I'm getting ready to go to Indonesia on a vacation and some other things, and I'm just kind of like, my wife is from Indonesia, so that's why we're going to go back there, and I'm just kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this now. But it's like, you know what? One of my mentors used to say, screw it, just do it. So I'm just jumping out there and I'm just hoping that this touches the right people. And we're going to just kind of keep helping you the best that we can. And I'm going to learn from the experience because I always find as long as you don't keep beating your head against the wall and you learn from it, it's never a failure. And so I'm always learning and trying to help make this just a little bit better every time I teach it and every time I help people through this process. All right. And part of that is I'm going to give you a little gift. If you pass this and you go through the course, I'm going to give you a little certificate. I'm also going to help you remember how to continue to dream again with a little compass that I have. Not a big deal, but it's just a little something just to kind of help you remember that you have accomplished something that wasn't easy, and most people will not don't are they're too afraid to actually go there. They want to in some ways wallow in their grief and they don't want to get past it. They want to just stay where they are. And so I want to just honor you if you do that. Okay. So here we go. Pass the three powerful secrets to living fully after loss. And I hope you're excited. If you're excited, always feel free to just go ahead and put it in the chat box. Say, I'm excited. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. It's like I may be sad right now, but I'm hopeful that maybe this could work for me. And I wanted to get to know you just a little bit better. So you can put your phone up right now and you can scan that, which isn't that cool? Isn't that crazy? Technology. I also use AI a lot. I don't use it a whole lot on this particular process, but on the business side, I use it extremely a lot because I find it can be extremely helpful. It can help you through things pretty fast on certain things. But anyway, I want you to think about this. I want you to ask yourself, when it comes to grief that you have personally experienced, where are you? Like type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are you one going through a loss of a loved one? It could be a pet, a family, a friend. Is it a major life change, like a divorce or health challenge? Is it a financial or a job-related loss? Number three, is it, something like that? Or because that's a loss, right? If you think about it, a lot of people think it's only about death, but not always, right? Sometimes it's like, man, if I lost all of my income, um, I I didn't put a whole lot. I put a little bit of money in this program that was oh, I don't know, it's like a technology thing where, it saves you money, but for some reason the technology went under and the banks that they were connected with, there was some kind of thing that happened. And I still, a year later, have a couple $1,000s that are just stuck and I can't get to it. And when I first found out about it, it grieved me because I'm like, I thought I invested in something where I couldn't lose my money, like, FDIC, is that what it is? And so it shouldn't have happened. But when some like thing like that happened, back in 2008, I invested in some real estate and I lost it all. That was a very grieving time for me. And so anyway, I just want you to know grief is not just about, individuals that we lose. It could be, like a divorce is another thing where it's like they haven't died, right? But man, that is a loss. It could be a loss of stability or community. So number four, it's like I know when I went through a divorce, it felt like nobody liked me at my church, right? I just lost my community. And then number five, it could be grieving and support, or anticipatory grief, or you're wanting to support other people through their grief. And if that's where you are, just put number five, all right? All right, and then I want to know what your single greatest challenge or frustration is right now. A, B, C, D, E, right? A, I feel stuck and I don't know how to move forward. Maybe is that where you are? Feeling stuck? Is it, I don't truly understand what I'm going through? No one truly understands what I'm going through, right? Nobody understands really what I'm going through. So is that where you are? Is it C, I'm overwhelmed and I just don't know where to start. I've gone through grief. I just don't know where to start. D, I'm afraid of forgetting my loved one. I'm afraid of forgetting them. And then E is this other one. It's very common is I feel guilty. I felt guilty trying to move on. So if you're just hearing this for the first time, it's not live, go ahead and write with me. Go ahead and put things down. I want you to go ahead and participate. I want you to get a piece of paper out. Go ahead and start writing some things down as we go through this. All right. And then I'm really curious where you are. Like, are you, when it comes, well, not this one, I don't want that. Last one here. How long have you been dealing with your grief? Has it been days, months, years, decades, or a lifetime? So just write day. It's, this has been days, or maybe it's been months, maybe it's been years that you're going through this grief. Maybe it's been a lot longer than that. And I see that often. People who have been stuck in their grief for decades, still going through counseling 10 years later or whatever. And or is it just seems like this has just been forever? Maybe you grew up without a dad or something like that, or a mom, and you're still grieving that you never, maybe your mom died when you were 5 or something. And I want you to go ahead and just put lifetime. That's fine. Okay. All right. And then finally, I just want you to just be aware maybe of some of the things that you've tried. And I'm always curious about these things, right? Because it's like, I want to make sure that we get past these things, that these things will not hold you up. So is it maybe you feel like you have to be tough and be strong and you're trying to figure it out, or maybe you're like you've been in support groups, but there's like always these over talkers, and you can't ever actually be able to talk and share what you want to, and or maybe you've just read, you've been trying lots of books, reading lots of books, going on the internet, and you're just, I call it the algorithm roulette, hoping that the internet will figure it out for you and lead you to the right people, but then you still have to read all the content and all that. If that's kind of where you are, then man, you're in the right place today. And but it's going to require something of you. It's going to require you being open to a different way. It's going to require you taking a step, even though you're afraid a little bit. So just be ready for that when the time comes. So I want to introduce to you the Grief Recovery Roadmap Support System. And I could talk more about this, but I just want you to know this is like a transformational support system that's designed for real grievers who are tired of feeling stuck. You don't want to stay wallowing in it, but you're tired of feeling stuck or broken or hopeless. And inside, we've discovered this step-by-step method rooted in time-tested research, okay? And it can help you, like literally deal with the things that maybe you wish had been different or better or more, or the future that you once dreamed about, but now feels like it's out of reach. Or maybe there's the relationships that left you with lingering pain or regret or unfinished conversations. So it might sound too good to be true, but the truth is healing is not only possible, it is predictable when you follow the right roadmap. So let me go back to my story just a little bit. I mentioned to you that recently my mom died. It was a very significant loss for me. She fell in the hospital, or she fell at an assisted living home that she was in, and then she ends up in the hospital, and then a month later, she never comes back. And I had to be the one to tell the doctors that we were going to have to go and choose hospice. And so I was living with all these feelings, right, of guilt sometimes around that. I was shocked. I was going, this can't be happening, because she was talking to us even when she went into the hospital. And then sad because I was talking. I used to talk to my mom almost every day at one time, and I felt angry because the doctors, I'm just like, are they just wanting to get rid of her because she can't pay because she was on disability? Or where, there's all these emotions and things like that that I'm just going through, right? You can feel frustration, and I will say back in the day when I first learned to grieve, I did not have a lot of emotions. I didn't know what my feelings were. I had shut down most of my feelings. I had anger, and then I had happy, and it was like usually fake happy. And I didn't know much more. I didn't have many more choices on what kind of feelings I felt. So if you are further along than me on that, well, then that's great. This is going to help you even faster. And then so what I realized though is as a leader, okay, I tend to be a leader type. I tend to like see problems. I want to see them fixed, and I've been a leader most of my life. And so as a leader, I had to keep going because where I was working, you still have to keep going. There's still people that have needs, right? And and I'm there to help. And life and leadership doesn't stop. And so loss is never convenient. Have you noticed that? And as a leader, I'm usually busy helping others and building things. And I wanted to get off this merry-go-round and just say, could we just stop for a minute? And I'm in shock, right? Maybe you can relate. You're in shock, you're sad. People and family, they don't quite understand maybe what you're going through completely. Church people sometimes say dumb things and they don't always help. And sometimes they even make things worse. And I wanted to know why I couldn't just move past these feelings and move forward. And sometimes I even had these conversations with God, like, where are you? Where's the strength that you talked about, mounting up with wings like eagles or whatever? And I did try some things. I tried counseling a little bit. I tried support groups or two. I talked with some friends and family, but it just, none of those quite seemed to work. And another day went by, and another day goes by, and another week, another month, another year goes by, and I'm still grieving with these emotions back in the early years of my learning to process through my grief. And I want you to think about then the struggles that you may go through internally. I don't know what you're going through. I'd love to hear more of what those are for you, but I wanted to be happy. I wanted to have some normalcy. I wanted to get back to work, and I wanted to not live a life of regret. I mean, that's why I'm doing this particular seminar, right? Because I'm like, I realize, wow, life is short. I want to make a difference. And so rather than just having like things that are holding me back, instead of just feeling guilty and down and tired, it's like, how can I get past this? And then I was embarrassed that I felt these things, and then I felt guilty. Like, it just felt like I couldn't win when I was trying to go through this grief, and I was in such a roller coaster ride of emotions, and I didn't know how to travel that roller coaster very well. And this is when I ended up hitting a wall, because what I ended up doing is just trying to fake it till I make it, right? As the first time as a leader, I went through grief. I didn't know that my body would eventually rebel and say enough is enough. And I kept over committing, and I'm living fake happy. I'm staying busy so I don't have to feel anything. And I just kept internalizing everything, except when I exploded sometimes on others around me, or, maybe usually those that I love the most, like my closest family. And then I kept going and going, and I just didn't know what burnout was, but I was headed straight towards burnout. And then one day my body wouldn't take it anymore, and I had a heart attack in my 30s. Well, it wasn't a heart attack. My doctor actually said it was a panic attack, but it sure felt like a heart attack, because it's like my heart was doing weird things, and I just couldn't, had no energy. And I was at that time a human doing rather than a human being. I didn't know how to be, I just know how to do. And I just kept on helping others, and I was killing myself. And I had an epiphany. And especially lately, I had this epiphany, but back then I had an epiphany as well. And what I discovered is that what took me 2 or 3 years of grieving, and by the way, I was grieving over my daughter who um, had died. Okay. So her name was Paige Olivia, and we were a young couple, and I remember my wife waking up, things not feeling very well. She wasn't feeling very well, and we went ahead and went to the doctor. And I remember the ultrasound tech say, he got real quiet. He goes, I need to go talk to the doctor real quick. And he walks out, and I heard him say that I can't seem to find the heartbeat. And then he leaves, and then everything is just quiet. And then life would never be the same again, right? I mean, just life would never be the same after that for us. And so I just want you to know, here was the epiphany. The epiphany is, it took me 3 years to grieve over my daughter. And I wasn't able to process it until I went through this process that I'm going to teach you about today. Okay. But when I went through this process with my mom just several months ago, I'm able to grieve in just a short amount of time because I knew the process. Okay. So it's amazing, I guess is what I'm saying. So, I went through back in the day, I went through, like the grief recovery handbook. I read lots of things. I went through some things called breakthrough and I tried all these different things and and then I began writing. After I went through the process that worked for me, I began writing and tweaking this process to be able to help other people. Okay. And at the time, I did go through lots of things like Breakthrough and Grace Adventure, and they were amazing things to help me start to connect with my heart and other things, but it didn't quite help me through my grief. So at the end, what I realized is that you can live after loss. You can be happy after loss. You can even have a new vision after a loss. And you can begin to actually do what you think is impossible. Because with God, all things are possible. So if Jesus says that and it's true, well, then it's even true with the loss that you're going through right now. Okay. So I lived with a bunch of excuses and I had to go through a bunch of transformation on this journey. I had to live with the yuck until I finally said enough is enough and we've got to do something different. And there is a reason why you are doing what you're doing, staying in your grief, let's say. And so one of my mentors would say, I am the problem and I am the solution. And I had to learn to connect that maybe I'm part of the problem. And that was really depressing. The reason why I'm getting the results that I'm getting, because I'd been spending years trying to accomplish these goals that I wanted. And the reason why I'm staying where I am is because of me. And that's really depressing. So I even got even further grief, further loss and grief. But then I realized that I also can be part of the solution. That means that instead of all of these things that are happening in my life, maybe it's not just because of God. Maybe it's not just because of it's just in my gene pool or because I'm just bad luck or not enough or whatever these feelings and beliefs are. Maybe then I could actually make a different choice. And so that began to give me hope. And it was kind of like the discovery of the Grinch who discovered he had a heart, if you remember that, right? And it's just like all of a sudden he's just like he's about to fall over and die if you've watched the Jim Carrey version, right? And all of a sudden you begin to see his heart begin to pound and he goes, I can feel. And it was like, and all of a sudden he begins to have a new experience in his life. And that's kind of what we want to do here. All right. So, are you aware of your feelings and your emotions, and do you know how to deal with them? When my parents went through a divorce when I was in high school on into college, there was lots of yelling, there was lots of fighting, and I'd stopped feeling, and I didn't know I was like the Grinch, and I had this internal trauma that was affecting my growth. And what I realized is that most people get stuck in their grief from loss, and it could be from divorce or just about anything. But not only that they lose their dream. It's like the stuffing gets knocked out of you because of life, and we stay where we are. I work a lot with a homeless shelter in my town, and a lot of guys have just been beat up so much because of this and that. It could be from their own addiction. It could be because of mental. It could be just because of this or that. I was a couple days ago I was with a guy that was actually in Manhattan when 9/11 happened, and he it took him all day long to be able to get from Manhattan to his home across the bridge in Brooklyn. And the trauma, he felt his taxi cab jump off the ground and he thought it was an earthquake. And you can imagine some of the trauma that he went through at that time. And so the problem is that many begin to blame the results on their circumstances. And I know I did. And the reason I'm not accomplished in life is because of this and that and poor me, right? You know what I mean? And that is what we want to deal with. Okay. And so, just in case you're wondering, there are many types of people who have gone through this process of success. Mr. Ashwell here was a leader, he was a pastor, and after loss of his dad and a loss of a job, he actually ends up into another job you'd think would be great, but it was a very toxic leadership structure, and he just about lost his lost his mind going through that. And then Mrs. Mills, she was a leader of a business, and her son was rejecting her at the time, and her husband had a condition, and she's kind of walling everything up. It was looking like she was going to lose her business and that she's going to need to sell her house, which is where her kids grew up. And then Dr. Collins, his wife died of cancer, and he had to be strong for his patients. And as he served, he served in a very small town, and he served at a medical school. And so, those are all heavy duty losses. But the right support with the right system allows you to be able to start dreaming again and to get unstuck and move forward. And so, Mr. Ashwell, he quit this toxic environment. He began a new job. He felt like, in many ways, because of being a pastor, that you have to put yourself through hell or something. You have to live in that place because it's like, it's a calling to stay, with the church. But it was just a very toxic environment. And then Mrs. Mills, she learned, so he's learned to be able to start again and to do over again and to dream again. And then Mrs. Mills, she learned to connect with her son again and her family, and to let go of all the baggage that was holding her back and learn to set boundaries for herself. And then Dr. Collins, he was the one who began to set goals for himself and start dating again. Which was really exciting. One time he said, "Thank you for showing me how to date again and date the love of my life again," that kind of a thing. So, how many of you would like to be able to push through your grief and be like someone like Mr. Ashwell or Mrs. Mills or Dr. Collins? Always type things in the chat box if you want to, or just write it down and say, "Man, I want this. I want to be able to work through my grief and be able to see again, to dream again, to live again." And so I spent thousands of dollars and years investing, trying to grow. I got on the personal growth bandwagon of like, okay, get in it to win it. I had a lot of, I don't believe everything in that whole personal growth world, but it's such a great place to be able to grow out of where you are into where you could be and that's what a leader does, right? You go from here to there. You're trying to take people from here to there. And so you're usually about trying to kind of help yourself grow. And so this was a thing that it took me, lots and lots of money and lots of time. And so, maybe I discovered it the hard way, but I want to help you learn it the easy way. And so, hopefully this is going to be a good thing for you. And so the conflict I experienced along the way was pretty difficult, though. I had just so many times that I just wanted to quit on my journey. I wanted to stay in bed. And of course I grieved, but I was sad and I was angry and I was in denial and I was experiencing loss. And maybe you've realized it too. Like, how many times did you, do you have to go through pain? Maybe you're asked, you're in conflict about your purpose and the purpose of it all. Or maybe, you're asking, why is the world still going? Why is it not slowing down? And you take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. You're not going forward at all. It feels like you're going backwards. So all of these are kind of things that I think if, along the way, or these are all things that I had to go through and eventually kind of begin to dream again. But it wasn't until I had to go through my grief first. Okay. So I'm going to talk about these secrets. The secret number 1 is the healing code. It's why you've been grieving the hard way and probably don't even realize it. And secret number 2 is what I call the grief mindset. It's why it's not your fault that you're still stuck. And secret number 3 is the fight, flight, freeze myth. And the one small trick to get unstuck, even if you have no energy or time or you are alone. So let's talk about secret number 1, the healing code. This is where you may be asking yourself, even now, I'm not sure this program will actually work for me. You don't know about it maybe as much, or you need to know more about it. I don't know. But you're just going, you know what? Grief is too personal. No one can fix my grief. There is no science to grieving because it's about emotions, right? Things like that. So secret number 1 is about helping. Most people are unknowingly using what I call the coping method or coping model instead of what is called the healing model. And that is why you're still struggling. And so most of us, without even realizing it, we're grieving the hard way. And we've been taught to just cope. Or eventually you will get through it magically, right? So we stay busy, we try to stay strong, we numb it, we tuck it away, or worse, we just wait for it to magically heal. And that's what I've learned is the hard way. So coping without healing leads to fatigue, to burnout, and eventually emotional breakdown. And especially if you're a leader and you keep having to move on forward and do things, and or you just stay stuck in your house all the time and you never get out. And that was me. Not that wasn't me. I tend to be more the person that was the action taker, but internally I was just dying inside. And so I now realize I was just surviving. I wasn't really living. And I was hoping things would get better, but hope, as they say, is not a strategy. And then I discovered something I call this healing code. And it's just not another feel-good idea. It's a real proven framework. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure this program would work for me uh, because grief is very personal, but I did find it as an amazing process. It works over and over again. And I'll even try to show you some of the evidence along the way. Okay. All right, so let's talk about it a little bit. This is called the Grief Recovery Roadmap Support System, and it unlocks the process of moving forward in a way that feels natural, but not forced, and in a way that brings peace to your past. And the way I discovered it was through this eccentric old lady that used to go to my church whose husband had died like years earlier. And she's just a real interesting woman. She's a very wise woman. She always seemed to be. And but she had a husband die, and I remember seeing her and watching her go through this grief. And this is a picture of her cat because she wouldn't send me a picture of herself. Eccentric. Did I tell you that? And so anyway, I went from she asked me if I'd like some help. And I'm like, I don't really need help. And she goes, well, actually, I need help, she said. She said, could you go through this process to help me? Because I'm learning to go through it and I'm supposed to go through it with someone. And I'm like, okay, well, I can help you, right? I don't need help, but I can help you. But internally, I'm kind of thinking, you know what? If this thing works, I could actually use this. And so, and then ultimately begin to find my purpose again and my passion. And that's when I found another mentor, John Maxwell, who began to teach me how to be able to dream and figure out what my purpose is. And so, I started with some of the process of the grief recovery handbook of Dr. James or John James and Russell Friedman. And that would help me through some of my loss. And then several other people along the way, one of them being John Maxwell. And I went from embarrassed and full of endless thoughts and emotions, you know what I mean, to like someone who would call, I found closure and some completion and begin to dream, and then found a process to actually help me get there. And I call those systems of success. Okay. And so I'm going to talk about systems of success. It's what we're going to call, I'm going to talk about rocket fuel, but we're not there yet. Right now, let's just deal with the grief that you're going through presently. Okay. And so this is what I call the trauma drama. And the first step in the framework strategy is all about the trauma. And this is the exact roadmap I created now years later, and only takes these three steps: trauma, triage, and trust. And you have to work through the trauma. And then you have to triage which trauma you're going to deal with. And then finally, you're going to have to trust enough that this process can actually work for you, and then begin to see what the next step is for you. And um, yeah, anyway, I'll just leave it at that. So to break it down step by step, the very first step is what I call the safe zone. Okay, the safe zone. So this is what helps folks just like you find a safe space to walk through your pain and towards your healing without worry of like judgments of others or uncertainty of where to start. And what you need to do is create a safe space for dealing with your grief, your emotions that affect you physically, and vice versa. And it's your physical affects you emotion, your physical affect you emotionally, and your emotional can affect you physically, right? Vice versa. And I could tell you all kinds of stories about that. If you're interested, let me know, because I used to see these all the time. Google broken heart syndrome sometime, and I think you'll find out what I'm talking about. So the physical trauma is affected by your emotional trauma, and vice versa is what the point is. So that's why you need to create a safe space for dealing with your grief, and then take it step by step. And the first step in the grief safe zone is what I say: put 9 1-hour slots onto your calendar to deal with your grief on Sunday evenings at 6 p.m. Central. So just put 9 hours on your calendar where you can deal with your grief, 6 p.m. Central. And then find 9 more slots. It could be immediately after that hour, and or it could be another time. And this is where you're going to deal with your homework assignments. Okay. This is where you're going to be given the next step so that you know exactly what to do next. And then the rest of the week, you can get back to what you're doing. You can get back to normalcy, and in the back of your mind is going, okay, I know this is coming. I'm going to deal with it, right? So I can move forward, but I'm going to continue to know that's coming, right? But I don't have to think about it because I have a time slot for dealing with that. And the other option then, if you don't want to go that approach, even if you, I mean, what I tend to recommend is that you do this in a community. It's a cheaper way to do it. It's a way to see that you can relate other people are going through the same things that you're going through, and that's some of the healing process. But if you need to go through one-on-one, I have that possibility as well. It doesn't change anything. It is the exact same process. You still need to make sure that you find those time slots that you say, I am going to deal with my grief. Okay. So the second step and second stage is what we call grief beliefs. And this is to ensure that the grievers move towards grief or loss, even if they were taught incorrectly how to grieve, or they believe the myths or the false beliefs around grief, like men don't cry, or you're supposed to be strong, or maybe if you doubt that you're grieving the right way, and there's all kinds of beliefs, right? That come up and people say to you during this time. When my daughter was dying, people would come up and say, well, at least she's in heaven. And I'm like, true, but that's not helping me any. And felt like I wanted to punch you in the face because I'm grieving and it hurts and I'm sad, right? And so let's talk about these beliefs that we have and that people tell us, or how to deal with our grief. Just move on, in other words, they might be saying, right, in the back of their mind, because they can't handle the emotions that you're going through. And then the third step is what we call is recognizing the distressors. And after that, we teach you how to become aware of how you tend to mask your true feelings. And if you're not careful, you begin to continue to have an addiction, and you become dependent on something to make yourself feel good. It doesn't usually help, but it makes you feel good for at least a while, right? It could be alcohol, it could be sex, it could be a cake, right? Or ice cream, right? It could be just about anything. We talk about, what is it? Go shopping, right? Shopping therapy, we call it, right? And so, how do you recognize what those are, and when you're using them as a de-stressor, and how to do that without, feeling guilty, or shame, or uncertain about how that grief is affecting you in a negative way, and to not let that cycle continue your addiction. All right. So that's kind of the third step, and that's all part of trauma. Is begin to recognizing that trauma is there. And then the third step is then you have to triage your trauma, because you may not realize how much trauma is going on in your life. And so I'm not going to go through each of these individually because I don't have time. But basically, this is where you go from, it leads from uncovering your trauma to triaging your trauma and heal the one most dramatic issue that can cause a domino effect and heal through your whole life of grief, even if you don't remember the trauma. Okay, so there's steps that we go through. We review your loss history, of your whole life. We begin to think through the one event that right now is like the dam that needs that if we can break that one, everything else might begin to flow. And then we create a healing checklist. Okay, so that's all in triage. And then finally is what we call trust, and trust is then being able to trust the process of healing. And so one of the ways we approach that is we create, let's say, a letter. And this is where you begin to trust. You can start to trust yourself again. This is where you begin to trust others a little bit. And this is where you can start trusting God again with your desires and your passion, and ultimately with your purpose, to the point where you can begin a next chapter. And we recognize all of those things, and then we celebrate. We celebrate the healing that's taken place. And if you don't believe that this is true, I told you, um, the right system. It's not only the right system is half the battle. Okay. So these two wrote, they're the only ones I know of anyway, that have written on grief and have this level of not only expertise and research, but positive outcomes that they realized behind this, where you can have a high confidence that those who follow the grief recovery roadmap action plan can find happiness in their lives despite the loss that they suffered. So you don't have to stay stuck in your grief. Okay. And you can do your own research there. It is in Kent State. Again, you can take a quick screenshot of this if you want to. Look in the American Journal of Health Education. You can see really that it might sound too good to be true, but again, it's possible because it's predictable when you follow the right roadmap. Okay. And then that's for anyone basically who has a loss of a loved one, has a major change in your life, has financial or job related loss, losing stability or community and grievers, and others that you're trying to support. And I could go through each one, but I hope you just see that is very broad when it comes to grief, and probably it handles most of the grief that you're going through. And if you have a question with that, just ask me. Okay. So that's secret number one. Is here's what I realized. The epiphany is that healing requires a proven process. Healing requires a proven process. That was an aha moment for me when I realized, wow, this works. And if it works for me, maybe it can work for somebody else. And it does, and it did. And then secret number two is what I call the grief mindset shift. It's why it's not your fault and you're still stuck. So let's kind of talk about that. Let's talk about the myths, right? Because there's a lot of myths that we have to overcome. All of these are like beliefs that people say, and I just talked about, there's a section of grief that we talk about, right? But there's the heat, there's time heals all wounds, stop feeling bad, be strong for others. You got to replace your loss. I know you got it. I know your dog died, just replace it with a new dog and you'll feel better, right? It's like, no, that's not how grief works. Your grief is personal, so you probably should grieve alone, or just stay busy. And and that'll eventually you'll get past it all, right? So what we don't realize is not only are these beliefs a part of our life, and we may not even realize it, but there's a subconscious level of thinking that's underneath the surface that we have to overcome. And you're not even aware of it sometimes, that you're stuck in a rut, as they say. Carl Jung used to say, unless the unconscious becomes conscious, it will run your life and you'll call it fate. And so we have to deal with the unconscious level of thinking. And you may not, it's like, I don't know what I don't know, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's not your fault because you just don't quite know that you don't what you don't know. And this is a time where I was going through, I went through a divorce, another one of the losses, significant loss in my life. I was very angry. I was very depressed. I was very alone. I was living in a one bedroom apartment. I'd lost my job in a town where there were no other jobs like mine, because they had to make cutbacks and such. And my wife and my kids was one of my favorite holidays was Independence Day. As a family growing up, we used to, have watermelon and sell fireworks, and then to raise money for vacation, and then we'd get to shoot them all off and everything. And it was just I love the summer. It's also when my birthday is in July, and so it's just a really good time. And this was a very negative day because my kids were all with my wife. And so months earlier, I'd gone to Florida and get certified with John Maxwell. And he's one of the best leadership gurus in the world, I believe. I think he's written more on leadership than anybody ever in history. And I learned from him. I learned from others that are on his team, like Christian Simpson. I learned how to be a good coach. That transformed my life. I just realized coaching is one of the single greatest ways to see people's lives changed, because it deals with the unconscious. It deals with you choosing the next step as opposed to somebody telling you what to do. So you're much more likely to do it. And I learned from Dr. Bafidis there, who was like a renowned surgeon. And I began to realize that, you can't, he taught me how to be grateful instead of have excuses, and how that allowed me to begin to move forward. And this was a time I didn't want to forget how really depressing this time was, and then how things began to change. And I began to think in abundance thinking, because of the tools that we talk about right here, to get past all of these beliefs that hold you back. And again, one of the greatest issues that I learned is finding the right coach. And when I say the right coach, here's what I mean. You need someone, step one, is a coach who understands the four stages of learning and how you can identify where you are. Now, what do I mean by the stages of learning? Well, you've learned, you have to learn to relearn if something is not working. And I don't know, just the easy way for me to think about this is like if you have unconscious incompetence, right? Let's say you're a baby in a car. You don't realize that you can drive. You just kind of you're oblivious, right? You're unconsciously just not knowing how to drive. You didn't even know you could drive. And then and then you get, into junior high or something, you start going, oh, you know what, I could drive someday. And then you get a little older and it's like, okay, you want to learn to drive. And so you start to drive and you consciously are incompetent. You think you know it all. You think it looks so easy. And then you get out to drive and you realize, oh, wow, this is not as easy as I thought. My daughter, she literally drove through Sonic drive-through. I mean, she pushed the brake and the accelerator at the same time when I was teaching her, and she immediately became she realized I'm consciously incompetent. I really don't know as much as I thought. And so maybe I should listen to my dad a little more. And so she became very focused in that moment. And then from there, she began to become very more intentional and trying different things. She became consciously competent, learning how to drive. And then after a while, she's now a professional driver, right? It's just like I'm unconsciously competent. So she doesn't even think about it. We don't, she drives places without even thinking about it, right? So she's unconsciously competent now. And unless there's something that she's like not quite learning, right? And then she's going to have to relearn some things, right? And she's unconsciously incompetent at this moment. She doesn't realize, maybe she doesn't know how, maybe she is like, just she's not totally stopping at the stop lights, or and so the police, pulls her over for, going through the speed, the stoplight without stopping or something, right? So all of a sudden she becomes consciously incompetent. So anyway, there's this whole process that you go through. These are the stages of learning. And so you need a good coach that knows those stages so they can help you through those. And step two is you need a good coach who understands the grief recovery roadmap process and psychology of it. So, for instance, each individual or group needs to create the right expectations for healing. So, crying is normal and natural, but it's not essential. Some people feel like unless I'm crying, I'm not really grieving. Or there's the need for total honesty. And if you can't be vulnerable, right? So maybe you're going to stay stuck, right? Because you have to be honest with where you are. And then step three, I could get, we go through each of these until we find the ones that work for you. And then the third stage is what, as a coach that is able to guide, not fix. Because who wants to be fixed? Who wants to be told that your feelings aren't right or whatever? So no fixing, no judgments, great questions. And often a good counselor might be good at some of this, but they tend to want to be a fixer a little bit, right? They want to give you solutions. And professional coaches understand the importance of this. And so you need the right coach who knows how to listen instead of tell you what to do. And then finally, step four, and that is I want you to think of my last name, ear, heart, that you listen with your heart. And so you need a trauma-informed coach and community who knows how to actively listen and guide you towards healing instead of create more need for healing and unintentional hurts that happen along the way. Okay, so that's oh, and I have Drew had multiple losses in a row in his life, and so he started asking. He just didn't know which loss he should focus on, right? And once he knew, so how do you navigate through those emotions, and how do you know what thoughts to focus on for healing and things like that? And so this is a good case study where he was able to kind of process through that, and he now says that was one of the most significant things he's ever done. So here's the secret. Secret number two is the grief. And I hope that you would want to be like that, right? You just like, wow, it's like, I didn't think this would work, but it worked. And I now realize it's like there are these things that were going on underneath the surface that I wasn't even aware of. And now I can find healing for them. So secret number two is the grief mindset shift and why it's not your fault. But here's the epiphany that you don't know what you don't know, but you do need the right people to help you. So the belief is I am capable of healing and moving forward, and grief doesn't have to define me. You don't have to be strong and get over it. Healing isn't about forgetting, it's about transforming. And most people stay stuck because they rely on willpower alone. And the key to rewiring is how your mind processes loss. So, Grief Recovery Roadmap gives you simple daily shifts that make healing automatic instead of overwhelmed. Okay. So that's all secret number 2. Now let me look at secret number 3. Secret number 3 is what I call the fight, flight, or freeze myth. And that's the one small trick to get unstuck, even if you have no energy, time, or are alone. You've probably heard of the fight, flight, or freeze concept. When you face trauma, you tend to do one of those 3. You fight back like a cat cornered in a swimming pool, right? Or you fly away, you run away, so you don't have to look at all these emotions because there's so much, or you freeze because you just don't know what to do, and so you just shut down and you just kind of like get ran over in that moment. Okay, and so we need to find a way to trick our brain into moving forward without fight, flight, or freezing. Okay. And so I learned this step from a very intelligent man named Ryan Levesque, and he started a multi-million-dollar company called the Ask Method. He knows Chinese so fluently that people can't even recognize that he is not Chinese. And I used to be a part, which is amazing, just to learn Chinese, by the way, if you've ever known that, Chinese and Japanese. My son's learning Japanese right now, and I'm like, wow. But anyway, I used to be a part of his mentoring program, and he shared this one concept one time. And he started it off with a quote from John Wooden, who was the greatest coach of all time, college coach, most would say. And when you improve a little each day, eventually big things occur. Not tomorrow, not the next day, but eventually a big gain is made. And so, um, I used to be afraid to go on live on video. And so he encouraged me just to do it 1 minute at a time for a week. We had a bunch of us one year who he said, can any of you do 100 push-ups? And none of us could do 100 push-ups. And so some could do like 25 or so, but nobody could do 100 push-ups. And so we decided to do one push-up, and then each day we added one push-up, just one incremental step each day. And so we would go online and we would show the video of us doing our push-ups. It was so fun. And then after 100 days, I did 100 push-ups. It was amazing. And so, I've got videos of this and I could show them to you, but I'm not going to show them to you today. But maybe I could show them to you sometime. But I just want you to see that's amazing. I used to do the same. Oh, I've got so many stories about this, small incremental steps. I remember swimming laps. I used to be I love swimming. I'm a good swimmer, but I couldn't swim laps back and forth. And I saw this gentleman that was like going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I asked him, right, how do you do that? And he said, okay, here's what you do. Slow down. Don't go so fast. Because I was going a little too fast and I was just sucking air, and it's like, I can't do it anymore. So I just had fun for the rest of the swim. But he said, slow down a little bit more. And then he said, now what I want you to do is just add just one or two more laps each day. And would you know that at the end of the time that I'd been spending at the Y, which is where I learned this from this gentleman, I think it was like 76 different, I need to go back and look for sure, but it's around 76 laps. Crazy. Up to that time, I only done like 4 laps at the most in a swimming pool like that. But you know what, how many he had done? He was doing 99. He was doing a crazy amount of these, and he was like almost 80 years old. So I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. Small incremental steps, right? So anyway, the point is, I just want you to realize when you can learn the concept of small incremental steps, you can do just almost anything. And so we have to trick your brain on how to do that. And so what we do is we start off with a very safe space, right? That's step one. You add those 9 hours into your calendar at 6 o'clock on Sundays. And then you find 9 other hours where you can kind of work on your homework. And then you make it so easy that the next step is so easy that even a caveman can do it. All right. So that's what we do. We have these very simple steps. We have these little PDFs that kind of walk you through the mindset of it. And so that you can be confident that you can take the next step. And then we get very specific about it. We go through your trauma, then we triage your trauma, and then we teach you how to trust again. And Dr. Brown, she said that I just told my mom that of all the things that she's done for me and bought for me, which is a lot, buying me 6 months of coaching with you has been the best money she has ever spent. Thank you for everything. I thought that's I'm so grateful for that quote. This was a gal who had lost her dream. She had worked her whole life to get into medical school, and she flunked her first year of medical school. I used to work a lot with medical students and physicians. I had one physician who was a surgeon, and he came into my office and he shut the door and he says, "I don't want to ever be a surgeon again." But it was like, how are you going to pay off that $500,000 debt, right? So so anyway, we had to. There's the grief. We had to work through the grief. I'm the problem. That's sad. That's depressing, but I'm also part of the solution. We began to solution things. And not only do we have a good process, we had a good support system, right? A good coach. And if you have the right coach, that's the best money you will ever have spent. And so she was able to begin to dream again. She was able to learn how to ask in a way that she was able to get a second chance. She was able to work through um, her belief that of test anxiety and how to get past that. And all of a sudden she goes, now what I really want to do. And she is now a physician. She has a child. Actually, she has a second child now, and she's just doing fantastic. And her mom is so proud of her and saw the change in her life that she wanted to become a part of it, the process as well. So do you think that if you just did these three frameworks that you could have success getting the results that you desire most? So what was the epiphany for me? Small incremental steps is the key to breakthrough, even if you think you can't or you don't want to do it right now. So those are the three secrets of life after loss. All right. Hope that was helpful. That was about 1 hour, just like I promised. But now I want to ask you a question. Would you like me would you, was it helpful? Was that helpful? Was it like, oh, wow, that was so good. That makes sense. Lots of good content. Da 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 da. Hopefully that was helpful. Hope it broke down some of the beliefs that tell you, I don't know that this is for me. Or could I do this? Could I not do this? Absolutely, you can do this, right? So I want you to tell me, wasn't that helpful? And now what I would like to do is ask you if you could give me a few more minutes to be able to explain what it could look like for you to work with me and a special offer that I created just for you. Isn't that exciting to be able to see that it's possible not only have the right system, but the right support and with small incremental steps? All right, so I'm asking for permission. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. And thank you for wanting to be a part of this and to consider moving forward in your life. I asked you if you can imagine if it's possible that you are willing to at least take a step forward. So let's talk about that. All right. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to get if you invest in yourself today. This is what I call the Grief Recovery Power Pack. It's full of all the tools and the support and the strategy that you need to reclaim your life. And the first thing is what we talked about, the Grief Recovery Roadmap system. All right. So that's the system. It's everything that you need to be able to kind of work through your grief. And as promised, how to live after loss in 2 months rather than 2 years and in only 2 hours a week. And it's going to help you not be stuck in your grief. It's going to help you move past all the emotions, not be sad every time you think of the loss, to grieve and be strong without having to fake it as a leader, to not have guilt and shame and hope, to live again, even dream again. And you're going to be able to replace all those negative thoughts and emotions. What's that worth? What's that worth just to be able to replace all these negative emotions that are holding you back? It's going to be able to replace a counselor or a therapist or even a pastor. Counselors are like, like I said, there's a friend of mine who was like 10 years he'd been he's still going to this counselor. I'm like, he's not the type that allows himself to listen and to grow. And so he just puts up walls whenever you begin to bring it up. But I just want you to think about this, $75 to $200 for a few months of counseling, right? And that doesn't usually really help you live your life after your loss. Um, it can help some. I'm not saying it doesn't help, right? But usually they're good listeners and they're going to tell you what you need to think, though, right? And it might or might not help if they know what they're doing. But I have a friend who's been seeing this therapist, like I said, a long time, and so $150 every other week, if you can imagine, for 25 weeks is $3,750 a year, right? If it was a week, it goes up significantly, right? And if it's like 10 years, it's like $150,000, right? So you don't have to You don't need a counselor, okay? And again, I'm not putting down counselors. It's coaching is a part of the counselor umbrella, right? Psychology, right? But the second thing I want you to see is that you don't have to bother your pastor, who's already probably busy. You can replace the hundreds of dollars that you spent on books and podcasts and all the time that it recovers, because we're going to tell you exactly what to do each week. And you don't even have to go through the whole course that I'm going to talk about, because again, we're going to tell you what to do. You can avoid all the friends and the family who love you at first, and then after a while they get frustrated and they're like, oh, can you not move on? Can you get fixed? For what you're doing. So anyway, all of these are things that are going to be able to help you replace what is going on maybe presently in your life when it comes to grief. And what the problem is that's going to be solved here is it's going to solve for you on how to feel again. You're going to learn how to feel. You're going to have to deal with your emotions and learn how to slow down and to be okay with being you, and to lead you out. You're going to be able to have a thought to be able to think about what you really want in your life. You're going to be able to be amazed at being able to deal with the emotions of your past, and be able to say, I can move past this loss, some very significant losses, as you notice, and pass and be able to do that in such a very short amount of time. All right. So for me, got rid of ruminating thoughts, feelings of guilt and shame, and the thoughts that kept me from going forward in my relationships. And I just wish that I would have learned some of this sooner. It was too hard at the time, and I didn't know how to deal with it, so I quit. And so I quit for a season, even on my calling. I quit on several things in my life, and I said, I'm never going to quit again. And I'm very grateful that I learned this process to be able to help me move forward and not live with regret. All right. Another thing I just want you to realize is the time and the money that I spent and that you're going to save, because I spend tens of thousands of dollars, right or wrong, on my life as I start working through things, because I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always wanting to learn to get past the things that I'm stuck on quickly. And so just recently, I spent $10,000 just learning to improve on one thing in my life as an entrepreneur. And my loss is your gain, because the things that I have learned over years and are things that I'm going to be able to help you grow in. And I like this little quote here. Not too far from where I live is where Walt Disney grew up. And I love this little story right here, because he he had basically put this whole thing out there for the friends in his neighborhood at the farm. I've been at this farm. You can sign your name in the farm on the barn and everything. It's pretty cool. And he had all of his friends come, and they were gonna there was like what's he say, there was like the family dog, there was a lethargic goat and a pig and a cat all dressed up in his sister Ruthie's doll clothing. And his mom was not impressed, and Flora heard about it, and she said, I want you to give all that money back, because they were not that impressed with the thing that he was trying to show. And so what he learned, he said he would never forget, and that is, if you deliver more than your audience expect, they'll never be disappointed. So if you learn to deliver more than your audience expects, then you will never be disappointed. And so I want to always underpromise and overdeliver. And so let me just kind of share with you what you're going to get. And then I think you're going to see this is a crazy opportunity. So you're going to get 10 sessions online, and it's like a 128-page course. You get the written version, the video version, the audio version. You also get 9 weekly live online sessions on Zoom, so you really don't even need the course, but you can go back and listen to it if you want to. And you're going to have weekly small incremental steps and inspiring teaching and training. You're going to get a small space or a safe space and community to share and grow. You're going to have Q&A at the end of each of those sessions, so that you will not get stuck if you have complicated grief and things like that. And the total value on that is usually $1,495. And then I started thinking, what else do you need to make sure that you have success? And I created a rocket fuel for your next adventure. It's a 6-week masterclass, how to go beyond grief and build life of freedom and fulfillment and purpose, and how the top 1% of leaders manage their time using these systems. And so it's the right system with the right support. And that's how you can create lifetime systems of success. The people that go through this, they say they think about this almost every day. on how to think and how to do things. I could talk to you about the importance of coaching, which I've already done. I think about Disney, going to Disney World one time where I was like, I wanted to ride all the rides, not all the rides, I wanted to ride all the roller coaster rides at one of the Disney Worlds. And what I ended up realizing is that I didn't know how. I didn't know what to do, and I only had one day. And so I got some coaching, and and I had a plan. I had a process. They helped me think. A good coach is going to ask you questions. They're going to help you get focused. They're going to help you find out what you really need, what you really want. They're going to ask you good questions like, how big is your family? How old is your family? What is important to you on this trip? How much do you have to spend? Things like that, right? And then they're going to ask you some more questions like, have you thought about using the Fast Pass or Disney Genie? And they're going to ask you if you want to stay at Disney resorts, maybe, and you could save an hour, get an extra hour. And they have all of these different questions and questions beyond the questions, and then eventually they're going to come up with a good plan for you. That's just fit for you. And so I had that. I was standing in. I remember being in line and just kind of waiting and going. I saw the next line. It was a lot shorter, and I thought maybe I should jump to the next ride. And I remember then my mentor and coach said, trust the process. Trust the process. And so I took a deep breath. I stayed in this long line. It was in a roller coaster ride, actually, and it was a long line. I took a deep breath and I stood in the line with my daughter. We had a great visit, and I was able to ride this cool roller coaster ride because of that. And then we were able to get through all the rest of the roller coaster rides, and we even spent time eating together and get home before all the crazy hit. So here's what you're going to get. You're going to get all the stuff inside the rocket fuel for adventure core work. Each of these are like $500 each. These are all habits and systems. You have the setting your right goals and without being overwhelmed, even if you don't know what your goals are or your purpose is, so you can have motivation. We call it 20/20 vision and why. You're going to be able to speak truth into those beliefs that cause you to procrastinate and be distracted or interrupted. And we call those the limiting barriers eliminator. You're going to be able to know how to prioritize your calendar without multitasking and overwhelm so that you can achieve what you want each day and reward yourself each day without numbing out on Netflix at the end of each day. So pat yourself on the back each day. And then the fourth habit is you're going to have a step-by-step process to find the right people to help you do what you don't know how to do. And I call that the puzzle picture support group. And then habit number 5 is how to say no without feeling guilty and without being hated or distracted. That's what we call focus pocus formula, and knowing what to do, what you have control over, what you don't have control over, how to deal with the emotions of the people that trigger you in your life. And then finally, the habits of how to delegate so that people do exactly what you want them to do without dumping on people around you or taking it back. So how to eliminate, what to automate, how to delegate, things like that. And that's what we call the lead recipes. And so that's all part of this process. I've helped people through this multiple times, so many times. It's really easy for me to help you create these systems and know exactly what you need to do next. All right. And I can talk about Kiva. I can talk about Sandra and things like that. All right. So, and I could talk to you about Oscar. Oscar's amazing. He was just a painter, and he said his goal was to be able to have his own painting business, and he was able to start his own business. He made $250,000 last year. He started his own business. He was a single dad. He wanted more time with his daughter. He actually went to Disney himself. So now you're probably thinking, really, is this really true? And I used to think maybe it wasn't true. But I have put it to the test, and those people who go through this process, they find that it helps them more than they even imagined. And so rocket fuel for your next adventure is actually a total of $49.95. That's now a value of $69.90. And after that, I began to say, so that's good, right? That's really good. Just thinking about those things right there. So what else do you need to make you have success? I started thinking it's not only do you need to work through your grief, not only do you need to know what to do after when you're ready to start dreaming again, but I also started asking myself, okay, I thought you might get distracted. It's so easy to get distracted when you're in grief. So how do you how do you keep it simple every day? Stay on track each day without being obsessed or by daily. How do you get inspired and how do you reflect on the things that you need to reflect on and stay focused? And so I created the Grief Recovery Roadmap, a 60-day journey to healing. And all it takes is 10 minutes a day. You don't have to do this, but it is something that I find for some people, they just need to be able to every day, just to kind of every day, it's that small incremental steps daily, not just weekly, that kind of helps them just kind of stay in the game. And all of these are in tune with the course. So each week you go through every day the kind of steps to kind of actually through your homework. So to be able at the end of your time, you will be able to actually have gone through your homework without adding that extra hour, instead just 10 minutes a day. I could talk about this friend of mine who is from Burma, actually, who can't speak English and was in a homeless shelter that I work with. And this is amazing guy. And just with small incremental steps, he was able to he had lost his green card, which I don't know if you know, just even to get, it's so difficult in this culture today to go online and be able to figure all this out. And he was able to figure out everything that he needed to do to be able to find hope again, to be able to get a job. And now he is working and getting out of homeless for himself. So anyway, everything you get inside, just get one daily inspiration, one daily next step, 10 minutes a day, and priceless peace. So here's the next thing I started thinking. Okay, so what else do you need? Well, there are people that I like to bring on the journey with me because it helps me stay accountable. And it's good to find a good friend or a good family member who believes in you and that can help you in this process. So family have a hard time sometimes because they trigger each other. One individual I coached had her brother had committed suicide. It was very hard. It was hard for you to be able to talk to her mom, who was one of the, her dad was no longer around, and so she was trying to figure out how to work through this, and it's very difficult, right? But at the same time, if you could find a family member or a friend, it is so much easier. And so what this does is it allows you to be able to find a family member or a friend that might want to be able to uh, go through this process with you. And it's what we it's well, I already talked about that. I'm getting ahead of myself, looks like. So let me just recap and I'll go back to what I just said. That of course is the Grief Recovery Roadmap 9-week support system, which is $19.95. There's the Rocket Fuel for Your Next Adventure, which is $49.95, and then there's the 10-minute daily inspiration, which is $195, which now leads us up to $71.85. And as I was saying, it's like finding a good friend or support person for you. That is a very helpful thing. I'm going to move this slide around here. This is my dad. And so my dad has become a very good support person for me. You don't have to do this alone. And so we call this the choice of partner family support group. Your choice of partner or family support person. And that way you don't have to go through it alone. You can get real-time support with also a family or friend member, and you don't have to then have them pay as well. This is a $995 value. And this is my best friend. And I was just at the Super Bowl party with him and we lost, so we grieved. No, I'm just joking. It wasn't that big of a deal because we'd already won 2 Super Bowls. Sorry to rub it in. But anyway, Drew, he started this friendship. We started a friendship in college, and he started going to a leadership conference with me once a year. And then we started calling like once a week. And then with that, we started learning to trust each other and share deep losses with each other and some of the hardest things that we've gone through. And now once a day, actually, we check in for friendship and accountability. And that's invaluable, right? I mean, if you have that kind of a friend with somebody, that's really invaluable. And of course, it saves you a lot of time. It saves you money. It's really priceless that you'd be able to spend time to go together through that. I could share more of the stories around these, but I'm not going to. But Drew himself says this, going through Grief Recovery Roadmap himself is life-saving for him. For me, I say this level of friendship is invaluable. And so what you get is 9 weeks of a support system. For 1995, you get a rocket fuel for your next adventure for 49.95. That's going to get thrown in, by the way. These are all free. All of these bonuses are free. You get 10 minutes daily inspiration for $195, and then you get your choice of a friend and family support partner, and that's a $995 value. All of this is $8,180. Of course, you're not going to spend anything close to any of that, but you can just hear the value that is going on that. And then the bonus number 5 is what I call the monthly remembrance and Q&A call. And this is where you get personal guidance and you can ask questions. You can stay on track every month. You can, I don't know about you. I mean, I love my mom. My mom is why I'm doing this. I never want to forget her. And so making time to remember and to have check-ins with others is what this is all about. And so you get everything included in that monthly remembrance, and you get this entire power pack, everything that I've been talking about. Um, and I just thought about this was just kind of a nice little poem that I just wanted to share, just because when you go through grief, sometimes poems can speak deeper than other things. And so this one just says, although it's difficult today to see beyond the sorrow, may looking back in memory help comfort you tomorrow. And there's looking back in the right way can help you from not only getting stuck, but can actually help you begin to find comfort in your tomorrow. And so that, let me just recap. You get the entire support system for $14.95. You get rocket fuel for your next adventure for $49.95. You get 10-minute daily inspiration for $195. You get your choice of a friend or family member support partner for $9.95. And then you get these monthly remembrances for 6 months for $11.88. And that all is all hinged on the 3 secrets on how to live after loss and find peace and passion and purpose without guilt and overwhelm and overload or being alone. And I just finally, what would it be like if you could get that kind of life after your loss and you found peace and passion again and a clear purpose? Would it be worth it? What if what it could help you get your life going again without guilt or overwhelm? Or stress or sadness or loneliness? Would it be worth it? And what if it's saving you tens of thousands of dollars in counseling and wasted time and allowing you to move forward to find peace with your past? Would it be worth it? I think you will find that it would be worth it to be able to move forward in your life instead of stay stuck, because time is invaluable, right? Don't you wish you had just a little more time with that friend, that person, that loss, the dog, the thing that meant so much to you? Well, I had 2 options as I thought about this. My first option is I could go as cheap as possible and like my competitors, and then they keep selling as many things as possible to keep adding add-ons, and it wouldn't incentivize me to stack the value. Or I could charge, like one-on-one rates and not have a life. And most of you couldn't afford it anyway. So that was my first option. Or my second option is I could require a little higher investment, but in exchange, I could devote more resources to guaranteeing your success with group coaching and a group process. And so that's where I decided to go, is option with requiring a little bit maybe higher investment, but man, helping you get through so much faster and at an affordable price. And so what's living fully after loss without guilt, overwhelm, and loneliness worth to you? Like Oscar, stepping into his purpose, making 250K last year, getting past the loss that he had, a spouse, not having a wife, and being stuck in a job that he really just thought was going nowhere and not paying him back. Now making, what would it be worth to him? What do you think it is worth to him right now? $300 a month, $1,000 a month, more maybe. How much would you pay if you could, put this investment in, but then you get the outcomes of the freedom and the purpose and life again, and even achieving your dream, peace and passion and purpose? What would that be worth to you, right? I think you'd see that it is a cost, or is it? It's another precious day that goes by. And this day is a gift. I used to tell myself all the time that when I used to work at the hospital, this day is a gift because I saw people die at all ages, and you never know when your last breath is. But this isn't a cost, it's an investment. It's another day without regret. And you can see why it's a great deal at $93.68. $14.95 is what I usually sell to the general public for the Grief Recovery Roadmap. And I'm throwing in all of these bonuses because you're here today. And so to get you started, it's only $795 today. You can go to chadearhart.com/grief offer, chadearhart.com/grief offer, and take advantage of it while you can. But you're going to have to act now because I do have a fast action bonus, and it expires when I turn off Zoom. Or actually, usually if it's on the live, and if it's not on live, then you only have a certain amount of time whenever the countdown ends. And so I am going to throw in some one-on-one coaching and tech support. If you are a fast action mover and the spots are limited today, and I only do every 2 to 3 months or so, if that makes sense, because the process is, it's not like one and done. It's like you will build on this process. And so I can only do this process every 2 or 3 months or so. And because this is an interactive program, I can take only a certain amount of people this round. Let me fix this. Looks like that needs to go right there. And so I think I have 5 people this round. I'm not sure what I'm at right now when you see this, if you push the button below. But the price will increase because this is a crazy deal, and I'm not going to do this forever. I want to get you started. I want to get a certain group in, kind of priming the pump. And this is the lowest price this program will ever be. And next time it will be even higher. And so what's the real cost of staying stuck though in your grief? Let me ask you. Years of therapy, grief and trauma workshops, 2,500. Self-help books, like how much will you spend on all of this to try to help get you out of this rut? Lost productivity. Think about how much that, unfocused, stuck, unmotivated, tens of thousands of dollars. You could even lose your job, right? Maybe you're strained in your relationships, and emotional toll. That's priceless to be able to get your relationships back. Way over $20,000 offer. And we're doing this today for only $795. And now you have 2 choices. First option, you don't have to do anything. And there's no risk, right? No leap of faith, right? 100% risk-free. That's the first option. Second option, pony up a small investment today compared to the value that you're going to get in return, and just give it a shot. And if we can't save you money and time, we don't deserve your money. I believe in actually helping you do what I say I'm going to help you do. And so I will throw together a 30-day guarantee, no risk. I know investing in yourself is a big decision, so let me just take away all the risk. Go through the program for 30 days, show up for the sessions, do the work. If you don't feel like you're making any progress, just email us and we'll give you a full refund, no hassle, no questions asked. All right, so now the pressure's back on you. Here's the real question. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? Is it worth a few minutes of your time to check it out? Which, even if it does half of what I claim today on this training, will pay for itself as soon as you start living again after your loss and you can start dreaming again. So what are you going to get? You're going to get the Grief Recovery Roadmap for $19.95 and the course. You're going to get the next chapter. It's not next chapter. I call it Grief Recovery. It's a rocket fuel. Rocket fuel. Rocket fuel. Rocket fuel. Oh, spell it right. All right, rocket fuel for your next adventure. Okay, rocket fuel for your next adventure. And you're going to get 10-minute daily inspiration. You're going to get your choice of a friend or family to support with you if you want them to. You're getting a monthly remembrance gathering, Q&A. And I'm going to throw in, for the first 5 people, a fast action bonus. You can get all of that at chadearhart.com/grief offer. I'm throwing in that fast action bonus for those of you who are like serious and you're ready to get in it to win it. $11,363 value. You will not find a better deal than that. What you need to do right now is just go click the button and do something about it. I could stay on, maybe just do some Q&A. I might add that in here and be able to answer some of your questions. So I'll kind of post those in, but when that's done, it's done. and we move forward after that. And you will not be able to have access to this deal. All right. So when you stay until the end, though, and you did, I'm going to send you the Grief Myth Busters cheat sheet. So thank you for being on this call. I'm going to give you the focus book, the essential strategies to overcoming distractions and increase your productivity and achieve your goals. And that is all she wrote. So I hope that was helpful. And I'm so excited that you're on this call today. We were able to kind of cover a lot in an hour and a half. And so thank you for being a part of this, and blessings to you, peace to you, passion again to you, and hopefully rediscovering your purpose and not feeling stuck with regret. All right. Peace to you. Thank you so much for being on this call. And I look forward to seeing you soon as we spend time together on Sunday nights at 6 p.m. Peace.